Okay, I'm going to use English for my speech today. 所以大家，我今天会用英文讲我的。
I will use English.
谢谢谢总，这么好的介绍。
Thank you, Mr. She, for your wonderful introduction.
So I'm very grateful for the time to be able to speak and learn a lot about the food and beverage industry and be able to talk about what a flexible supply chain is and how to go about adopting a flexible supply chain. I'm sure many of you guys here are today wanting to learn what is a flexible supply chain. Now, I wanted to use some examples to talk about this today. And I think this hotel is an excellent example of talking about what's changed. So it's been 3 days, and everyone's had lunch on the second floor at the buffet, Vicky, the Italian restaurant. There's the lobby lounge where you could have coffee or alcohol, and there's tongs downstairs that you can have tea. So this hotel is a perfect example of the changes within the consumer behaviors and the need for flexibility in the supply chain. My speech today is going to be broken down into 3 parts. First is the evolution of the supply chain. The second part is about the flexibility of the need for the supply chain and what the model is. And the last term is about what the competitive advantages are of C.H. Robinson and how we help our customers accelerate their advantage. So I'm sure a lot of us had lunch at a Vicky or the Italian restaurant or the buffet restaurant. And every single picture I actually used in my PowerPoint comes from this hotel. So what I had for lunch today actually was what I had a few days ago, which was the pasta, okay? And what I had in the past couple of days was called the penne alla rabita. So I wanted to know what was in my pasta first. And since everyone's finished with lunch, I'm going to explain what I had for lunch as a consumer and really explain one key message to everyone. You are what you eat. So I'm going to go forward with this comment. And on the screen here, you're going to see a series of pictures, a total of 5 pictures. I think the earlier presentation from Barilla actually took some of my thunder because I also talk about pasta. 3 key ingredients that went into the penne alla burrita. First is the penne pasta. The second is the sauce, a Nepali sauce. And the third is chilies. So let's talk first about the penne pasta. Where's the penne pasta coming from this hotel? It's imported from Italy, okay? And it's actually coming in a box. It's not fresh pasta. And for those of us that have had fresh pasta versus pasta that comes from a box, you know the difference right away. There's a difference in taste. While the ingredients of making pasta are all the same, such as the wheat that goes into it, the water, eggs, a dash of salt, the output is pasta, or in this case, penne pasta. But one key ingredient that we always continue to miss when we look at this is the input is time. The time to actually go and roll the dough, the time to let the dough rest, and the time to actually make the pasta itself, which takes a lot of time. So my first key comment I would like to make today regarding the supply chain and why we bother talking about pasta so much is that the consumer today is changing. And what they really want to value is really the time and convenience. So when we look at dry pasta, the inputs are the same. Water, the wheat that goes into making the dry pasta. However, the convenience is different, and that's what consumers want. So the first insight I would like to share with everyone is the consumers value time. I want to move on to talk about the sauce, the Nepali sauce. It's a traditional sauce that comes from tomato paste. And this makes me want to explore more around the tomato and where did the tomato come from and what went into it. So the tomato today from the sauce comes from the Zhejiang province, which is around 4,000 kilometers away from Shanghai. For us in logistics, that's 2 days by truck, 10 days by rail. 1 day for door, 8 days on the rail, 1 door for door delivery as well. And what's significant about the tomato is 2 decades ago, China was not a major exporter of tomato and tomato-based byproducts, such as tomato-based products used in ketchup, salsa, in addition to used in tomato paste. So while the low-cost manufacturing of tomato and the land to grow a tomato has become readily available over the last 2 years, the need to make the tomato sauce and the consumer behavior for tomato sauce has changed. And these changes relate to the sanitation, pesticides, and the metal contaminations that have all been created because of the food crisis that's been occurring over the last decade. My second point I want to make with supplier and customer changes is safety in the food industry is becoming more important now. From a logistics service provider, that means the visibility to the supply chain is more important more than ever now in terms of the upstream in addition to the downstream. So this brings me back to the penne alla arrabbiata I had for lunch today. And the third ingredient, the chili. What I learned from Italy is arrabbiata actually stands for angry and fired up. So my third comment, and my comment related to the changes within the supply chain, is we don't want our customers to be angry, and you are what you eat. I'm going to move on into some of the industry observations, but a lot of my previous presenters already shared quite a bit of insights regarding these insights, so I'm going to quickly talk about it in terms of rising prices are occurring, an aging population, food safety issues, product innovation, local sourcing, and sustainable pricing and practices. Now, this is all happening at various stages. You can see the United States market is actually leading a lot of this, and then you see Europe is following about a decade behind, and you see China is following about 2 decades behind, while certain parts are moving faster. What's unique about C.H. Robinson in this case is C.H. Robinson is both a global logistics provider in addition to a produce sourcing company known as Robinson Fresh. So our insights on this relates to both us as a provider in the food and beverage industry as well as a service provider. And really what it hints to is the need for flexibility and a greater need of flexibility in the supply chain. So it really brings me to the core topic of what I was asked to speak to about today, which is the flexibility in the supply chain. And what does it mean? Now, I'm going to introduce a framework today for everyone, and it's been talked about already today in multiple different sessions, but no one's gone out and talked about all the different components and what flexibility in the supply chain means. I'm going to set out to explain this model. It's a very simple model. However, to really achieve flexibility in the supply chain, it is quite difficult. And I'm going to explain why in terms of the challenges, in terms of the best practices. So it's really around 4 groups. And all 4 of these groups need to be able to work together. The customer service group, the logistics team, procurement team, and manufacturing. So I'm going to move forward first with the customer service group. The customer service group is the group within the organization that's closest to your end customers. So in China, there's a group that's closest to Carrefour, the RT Mart, Walmart, Sam's Club, various large retailers, in addition to those that are closer to the small shops. Now, this group has challenges with understanding what the consumer behavior is wanting. Now, we talked about Internet of Things, and we talked about Industry 4.0 earlier in different speeches throughout this entire seminar. And I think it's important to know that 3 of the best practices that we continue to see revolve around, number 1, customer segmentation. What I mean by customer segmentation is, from our experience and working with large customers of similar size, there's a segmentation within their customers, such as making sure the strategic customers that are like a Walmart or a Sam's Club work with the strong customer service teams to help meet their demand. There's a core group, such as the RT Mart, a local Chinese provider, that works with their provider as well as a customer service group, in addition to a transactional group that's able to meet the transactional needs of the small shops. Second best practice I would like to share is around scorecarding. And the need for scorecarding is becoming more important as you work with more of these organizations. The need to be able to measure the on-time deliveries, the damages and the shortages, and the different schedulings of whether or not they're being met. Scorecarding really ensures the best possible outcomes. The third one I want to share is around best practices sharing. What that means for C.H. Robinson is bringing the customer service reps and the end customers together and really having discussions around what's going on within their supply chain and how to help meet the demands of their end customers, in addition to forming customer advisory boards and being able to be involved in terms of the internal customer as well. I'm going to move on and talk about the logistics component. So the logistics, I'm not defining as an outside logistics provider. I'm defining as the internal logistics organization or group within the company. And some of the challenges they have is around information delay. Some of the best practices that we've seen with companies that have a flexible supply chain are around 4 key areas. So while data and technology everyone knows is important, and having a right ERP is important, what we see as a main driver of customers with flexible supply chains is being able to have an ERP system that all groups are trained on, meaning the customer service, procurement, and manufacturing team are all understanding and able to adopt and have trust within the numbers. The second piece I want to talk about is visibility. Being able to react to the changes in the customer demand. The third is being able to have a safety component or a security component to your supply chain, which is related to the trust in not having damages or shortages within your goods while they're in movement. And last one is capacity, is being able to have the surge capacity to be able to meet the demands of the changing consumer behavior. The third lens I would like to share with everyone is around procurement. And the procurement lens, these are the group of people in the organization that are sourcing the raw materials to be able to provide to the manufacturing site. And 4 of the best practices that we see with this group relates to understanding their evaluated or understand their landed costs. Now, why is this important? As you look at the inventory levels throughout the organization, they're high. And why is the inventory level high? It's to really address an accuracy problem within the procurement group that often is not addressed. And some of the root issues we see with this relate to forecasting errors, buying spikes, discontinued products, and returns. And you pair further with earlier speeches that talked about acquisitions of brands that have been happening throughout the industry. What happens is not everyone is fully aware of the pricing structure of the different products they're sourcing. And while it's always easier to buy on a delivered basis, there's often a lot of hidden costs that's built into the supply chain by buying on a landed basis. The second one I want to talk through is a documented process. A documented process means being able to have a procurement process that's documented well and that's not relying on tribal knowledge. And it sounds very easy, however, most often than not, we're seeing a lot of large organizations have challenges faced with having a well-documented procurement process. Third one is around supplier scorecarding. Again, back to being able to measure the supply chain and being able to measure the suppliers and vendors. These supplier scorecarding relate to the orders that are sent early, orders that are sent late. What it's really meant to resolve is the variability by being able to measure what's going on. And last one is the supplier collaboration. This was talked about earlier as well, in terms of how do we start collaborating better with our suppliers. So I'm not going to talk about it as a best practice, because it's covered earlier. The last group I want to talk about is the manufacturing group. And that's why we're here, is we're at a manufacturing and supply chain innovation seminar. The manufacturing group that I'm going to be defining is the group that works in terms of getting raw material manufactured into finished goods. And some of the best practices that we've seen within this group relate to visibility, collaborative scheduling, and safety and quality. But before we get to that, I would like to spend more time and be able to talk about the manufacturing piece, since we're at a manufacturing seminar. Let's go with the challenges first. The challenges with the changes in the yields and challenges to meet the customer demands. There's the labor challenges that are created here in terms of the product quality as well, in terms of the increased labor prices that have been happening in China. In addition, there's the changes to have visibility to the raw materials that's not always clear based on how your procurement team's buying product. And lastly is around the machine scheduling. The key is there needs to be visibility to the manufacturing piece. Related to the visibility on the manufacturing, it's related to knowing what to manufacture, how to adjust for the changing conditions, and the visibility to the raw materials. The second piece I want to talk about related to collaborative scheduling is around getting people to work together, having all the different lenses be able to work together. So example is having the procurement team and customer service team sit together so you have a buyer, in addition to having a planner, look together and build an actual forecast that's more realistic. Having the logistics team be able to ensure the goods are delivered on time, and having the customer service team making sure that the end customer knows when the goods need to be shipped. The second piece I would like to talk about is, or third piece, is around safety and quality. We heard earlier speeches about quality and safety around the supply chain and the needs for it from a manufacturing side. So again, it's being able to have a greater emphasis on the changes in demand and managing that safety. So I've introduced a framework around the 4 lenses. And I think it's important to know that all 4 of these lenses are parts of your organization today that are happening, and most of the times we're finding they don't talk to each other. So us, C.H. Robinson, as a logistics provider, for example, we work with each of these different groups to provide them the data analytics. However, we need help in terms of making sure all 4 of these groups within your organization are able to collaborate and work together. And that's really what that orange dot in the middle is about, is once all 4 of these groups are able to work together, that's when you really have flexibility within your supply chain. And what does flexibility look like? Flexibility looks like when you can make supply chain decisions quickly, when you can adapt to the consumer demands, and when you can accurately evaluate the trade-offs that happen within your company, such as trade-offs between raw materials purchasing and transit times versus the manufacturing locations. When this occurs, you're really able to help get your company demand meeting the inventory levels and not have stockpiles of inventory left. And I would like to share with everyone a little bit of history about C.H. Robinson. Is C.H. Robinson started as a produce company in 1905. And our resulting and solving our logistics challenges was actually transforming into a logistics company ourselves of what we are today. So in terms of the flexibility of supply chain, this is the basic model. And it's a simple model that I think any company today, while we talk about Industry 4.0 and we talk about the future, this is something that's realistic that can be taken back as a best practice and shared within your organization. So I want to move on to the third part of my speech. And I want to talk about how do we adapt a flexible supply chain and some case studies and examples. So before I do that, I want to share with everyone what we do for our customers at C.H. Robinson. C.H. Robinson's customers come to us to look for one of the 4 key outcomes. These outcomes could be to drive down costs, improve efficiency within their supply chain, mitigate risk, or manage change. Any one of our customers would be looking to solve one of these issues, if not more, by working with Robinson. And 2 of the examples when it comes to supply chain I would like to provide for you guys. First is within a beverage industry customer. So this beverage industry customer is a Fortune 100 company, US-based. They had over 200 plus carriers that they were working with, and they wanted to rationalize down to 10 carriers. That was one of the earliest projects we worked with in terms of getting outcomes of efficiency and cost savings, which was being driven primarily by their logistics team internally. What they came to us as a challenge that they were looking to solve was what they would call their black hole. And this black hole was around inbound raw material visibility. And the raw materials that I'm speaking of is around bottles, cans, labels. It's hard to believe, but around 20 different co-manufacturing or plants did not have visibility to the inbound raw materials that the procurement team was buying. There was no metrics around measuring late deliveries, requested delivery dates, and optimal inventory levels. So over a course of 10 years working with this customer, we worked with the various 4 lenses. With the customer service group, we work with getting on-time fulfillment and must-arrive-by dates measured and making sure we're able to meet those for the customer. We worked with the logistics team to not only provide visibility to the supply chain, but also visibility to the procurement side of the supply chain, in addition to sharing existing pricing that was already in place with the existing customer. The third group that we worked with was the procurement team. And we worked with the procurement team to really start breaking down the delivered cost and understanding what were the changes in their purchasing behavior. At the end, they were able to change their purchasing behavior and leverage what they already had in terms of pricing from the logistics team. And lastly, it's the manufacturing group, ensuring that they were able to meet the inventory that was needed to be able to manufacture the products. The results. We're able to measure the results and provide 8% cost savings in terms of the transportation spend, in addition to be able to provide visibility to their supply chain at the end-to-end, in addition to having better control of their freight. The second case study I would like to share with everyone is actually around C.H. Robinson as a produce company ourselves. So as I mentioned earlier, Robinson is a produce company and produce brokerage company known as Robinson Fresh in North America. That is our brand. So internally, one of our challenges every year is making sure that we're able to get our products out to the end customer as well. Because we do move fresh produce, at the end of every season, anything that's not sold, left over, becomes a loss for us. So we don't have a shelf life that could continue. In my example here, I'm going to share with you guys around watermelons, and not any type of watermelon, in particular mini watermelons, which we're seeing as a generation change of consumers wanting to purchase mini watermelons. These are the smaller watermelons. So what do we do in terms of C.H. Robinson? We collaborate and get all 4 of the different groups to work together. From a customer service standpoint, we work with our consumer insight groups. And really, that means to provide retail customers with information such as price elasticity, promotion, consumer purchasing behavior, and share those insights with our customers. With the logistics team, because we are a logistics company ourselves, we help provide the 52-week shipping demand schedule and be able to account for changes or trends in shipping such as the weather, price, seasonality differences. The procurement team, I don't have that called out as a solution, but these are the groups that are working on sourcing the seeds, the location, and the various marketing activities that go into growing watermelons. And the last one is the manufacturer, in this case, the grower. Working with them to understand the ready dates, how early can they cut the watermelons from the vine to make sure that it meets the end customer's needs. Results. In the North America marketplace today, we ship anywhere from 4 million cases of mini watermelons. And that results in us having a market share of 40% in the North America market. So my speech is very simple. It's around one lens framework around making sure all 4 groups work together and collaborate around the supply chain. I think some of the insights I would like to share is making sure that everyone understands this model is simple. To me, it's an innovation because most organizations I'm hearing today and through the past 2 days, we've been talking about Industry 4.0 and Internet of Things. However, at the root of it, it's still people that need to be able to work together. And having a lot of systems in place make it hard for those people to work together. So really, it's really about communicating and making sure everyone understands what's going on with the total supply chain. And this is how C.H. Robinson really helps accelerate our customers' advantages. That's all I had today. I hope everyone could understand the framework of what I presented today. Any questions?
Thank you for your presentation. My question in regards to the scorecards.
Yeah.
For a company like us, we have a 15 plants nationally, and each plant only produce one brand. So when you trying to implement a cross-company scorecard to the supply chain, different plants or different departments will have their opinion, which delivered on time is important for one A party, and incident or product damage is important to the other. So how do your company solve or ensure the company is willing to buy in a scorecard system which can be implying to the company-wise, has a diversity brands and the products?
Okay, let me make sure, let me just repeat the question. Your question is related to scorecarding. Are you on the manufacturing side or are you from a customer side?
Manufacturing side.
So from manufacturing side, so the scorecarding you're mainly looking for is making sure inbound raw materials are on time and the actual end product is shipped on time. Is it internal scorecarding or looking at which lens are you trying to scorecard?
Thank you. I'm looking to scorecard the suppliers.
The suppliers.
Yes, the raw material suppliers.
Okay. I could share with you some more of the best practices in terms of scorecarding. From our side, we work with various different manufacturers that usually it's something we work with the customers and we sit down and set goals based on what they're trying to achieve. And then you put scorecards together because the point of the scorecards isn't just to make scorecards, it's start measuring things because a lot of the pieces, once you start measuring the activity that gets done, that needs to get done, that's when there's measurements that people could start looking at. One saying that we say is, what doesn't get measured never gets done. And I think that's very true in China today is until we start measuring those activities, it's very hard to really start showing change or improvement. So if you need more, we're more than happy to work with you in understanding what scorecards that we provide. But I think from top level, what is the company's mission statement? What are the goals that you guys are looking to accomplish?
Hey, Jack. Well, like you mentioned here, despite the challenge you mentioned for the labor, if I'm talking about the manufacturing side, that I don't want to repeat all you said, but just the really key point here. But the IoT thing you mentioned, the consumer behavior change here, with the mobile phone, purchase, that shift to a different market, could be e-commerce. I'm not sure if you engage with the cross-border e-commerce here, but with the rapid, fast responses from the customer, which is what they always ask. I don't know what C.H. Robinson or yourself, what we see the market trend like, and what would be the strategy to adapt it, and the challenge, would be look like. I guess my point here is the visibility might be costly. For your investment, for the barcode scan, for the visibility for transportation, all these will be costly for your investment. Unfortunately, in China, a lot of customers may not to buy for. I'm not talking about price, I'm not about the value, but I'm talking about this is just common practice here. So what would be your comment here?
Sure. Let's break it down first. Are you talking about Robinson Fresh as a produce company because we are in the food and beverage industry, or us as a supply chain and logistics company?
Logistics service provider, thank you. That's what C.H. Robinson for. Thank you.
As a logistics service provider, I guess I'll talk about two insights on this piece, especially around the changes. And you're talking mainly around when we start looking at Internet of Things and getting into more of the omni-channel components of it, right? So some of the projects that C.H. Robinson's working on, it's still something we're not comfortable with sharing out there to network. So I can't comment too much about what we're going to do, unfortunately. But we do recognize that challenges for visibility when you look at the end-to-end piece in supply chains is important for customers and looking for that visibility. One area that I would say that we do work on is when the customers want visibility on their purchase orders and they want visibility at that level, that's what we've been mainly focusing on, making sure we're getting that.